Hello and welcome to Politics Today. We're live in the nation's seat of power, Abuja. I'm Kayode Okikulu. Well, if you thought that the intrigues on the road to 2023 were over, I'm sorry to disappoint you, because it will seem the real deal is just getting started. Well, earlier today, the nation's third citizen is now officially in the running to succeed President Muhammadu Buhari. A group called the National Stability Project have purchased and presented the APC presidential nomination and expression of interest forms to Senate President Ahmed Lawan at his guest house in Abuja. So, as it stands right now, the nation's number 2 citizen, that's the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and now the third citizen are all seeking an upgrade, as it were, to the number 1 citizen. But it gets even more intriguing. The Chief Whip of the Senate, Senator Orji Uzor-Kalu, has stepped down for the Senate President Ahmed Lawan in this presidential race. Well, he premised the decision to step down on the promise he made to Nigerians that he would only run for president if the 2 major political parties, that's the APC and the PDP, zone their tickets to the southeast. In his words, now this is what the Chief Whip said in a statement which he released earlier today. He said, "I have also told Nigerians that I would only run for president if the 2 major political parties zone their tickets to the southeast. That is why I was disappointed with our southern brothers who are talking about fairness and equity, but have zero tolerance for the same fairness and equity in the south." Well, he says in the absence of a southeasterner being president of Nigeria in 2023, he will be supporting a northeasterner, because according to him, this will be the closest to the equity, fairness and justice which everyone is talking about. Well, also today, groups across Nigeria presented the presidential nomination forms to Cross River State Governor Professor Ben Ayade. Now, that's on the one hand, but there's more. Some youths also presented nomination forms to the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva. And I'm sure you're watching right now, you're thinking, who's next? That's the big question, right? Well, while we ponder on that big question, let's take a look at other major political stories on our political roundup. And we'll be back for one of the big topics of the day. Stay with us.
The Federal High Court Abuja is ordering the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and the Attorney General of the Federation to appear before it on May the 12th to show cause why the request of the Central Bank Governor to run for the seat of the President of Nigeria should not be granted. Justice Ahmed Mohammed gives the order after the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, argues he can run for the position without vacating his position as CBN Governor. The CBN Governor, through his counsel, Michael Zekome, tells the Federal High Court Abuja that Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act of 2022 as amended does not affect him, as he's a public servant and not a political appointee. The leadership of New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, has received 20 members who defected from the All Progressives Congress in Zamfara State, describing the event as a sign of good things to come in the next general elections. The national chairman of the party, who was represented by the national youth leader, Mr. Mohammed Musa, says the NNPP is a party to beat in 2023. According to him, the party has solutions to Nigeria's problems, and he asked the electorate to give the party a chance in 2023.
People has endorsed NNPP as the real voice of the people. Our party is the one to beat for the country come 2023 general election.
Former Governor of Anambra State and presidential aspirant under the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Peter Obi, is insisting that the best form of zoning the party should adopt remains competence and capacity to deliver. At a meeting with the Taraba State Governor, Mr. Darius Ishaku, and PDP delegates in Jalingo, the state capital, the presidential hopeful stressed that Nigeria is a failed state where the only news citizens wake up to is killings and kidnappings. He adds that the future of the country is in jeopardy, with borrowing and the debt profile of the country on the increase, and unemployment and poverty also touring the same line.
The best zoning we need now is competence, capacity, and those who can deliver the results.
Following his antecedents and achievements while holding forth as the governor of Imo State, constituents from Imo North Senatorial District have purchased a nomination form for the former governor of Imo State, Ikedio Hakim, mandating him to run for the Imo North Senatorial District seat in the 2023 general elections. The constituents handed over the nomination form to former Governor Hakim in Owerri, the Imo State capital. Speaking after receiving this gesture, the former governor says after due and wide consultations, he has decided to listen to the call of his constituents to serve the people of Imo North Senatorial District in the Senate under the platform of the All Progressives Congress in the 2023 general elections.
I have decided to accept their offer and to present myself once more.
In furtherance of his consultation with critical stakeholders towards his presidential aspiration, the former president of the Senate, Dr. Bukola Saraki, was in consultation with former President Olusegun Obasanjo in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital. After a closed-door meeting which lasted for about an hour, the former president of the Senate rated himself as the best among the aspirants jostling for the exalted seat of the president, saying that Nigeria needs a purposeful and serious president who can take tough decisions at this critical period in our national development.
It inspires us to see that, we need to make this country, turn this country around and provide the kind of country that he wishes for and all of us wish for.
Bring you news just in. A coalition of northern groups have now arrived at the ICC wearing face caps with inscription "Run, Jonathan, Run" to purchase the presidential nomination and expression of interest forms of the APC. In fact, they have purchased the forms. They say that former President Goodluck Jonathan is the most qualified to succeed President Muhammadu Buhari. Again, a coalition of northern groups have purchased the presidential forms for former President Goodluck Jonathan, and they say that he is the most qualified to succeed President Muhammadu Buhari. Well, I did tell you that the intrigues keep coming in by the minute, no more by the hour or by the day. Things happen quite fast, but trust us to bring you the latest on all of that. But we'll get to that in a moment. Let's get into our first conversation tonight. The nation's capital, Abuja, is a seat of power, quite all right. But do you know that even the president, who is a resident of Abuja, has a senator representing him in the National Assembly? In a manner of speaking, there's only one senatorial district in the FCT, which covers the 6 local government areas. And tonight, we'll be speaking with a woman who wants to represent the people of Abuja at the upper chamber, the Senate. She's an entrepreneur in the media space, a communicator who's had years of experience in event management and more. We have a pleasure of Mrs. Adedayo Benjamin Zlani joining us tonight in our studio. Good evening. And it's good to have this conversation, really. It's something I've been looking forward to. But let's get down to business. What would you say, or in your opinion, is missing in the representation of Abuja at the National Assembly, which you plan to bring on board?
What is missing is a disruptive, bold intervention for the interface of the FCTarian from the place of indigenship and non-indigenship, reconciling the very controversial engagements of that premise and argument and attack, as it were, for that position, which, even though constitutionally it is enshrined as a position for national representation, anyone who's Nigerian can present themselves for the office of the senator of the FCT. It is challenged singularly by the huge debate about the indigenship marginalization of the aborigines of the FCT. Regardless of the fact, well, don't let me say regardless, I would say even though we do have the Act, the 1999 Act that puts the FCT in that position to own every Nigerian to own that space. And now you look at that and it's like, what is the problem? There are problems that have escalated by the positioning of the indigene in the space of their constitutionally represented expressions, not just of interest, but of citizenship and opportunity.
So in essence, you want to disrupt this idea that only an indigene, so to speak, can represent the people of FCT in the Senate?
Well, by law, that is already taken care of. What I want to disrupt is the fact that the advocacy for a non-indigene has been interfered with because the indigenes have not been given their fair and square deal with the transaction of the government and the original owners and aborigines of the FCT. And I believe that that has come really from the rescaled and highly politicized advocacy to retain the position as an incumbent position for the indigene until certain matters are resolved. Those matters being resolved, I believe, can be done through an equitable engagement that directs unity at the center of unity through an advocacy that brings the different sides, not just in the debate, but in sensibilities, to a place of discourse, proper representation through the leadership, through the chiefdoms, and through, as it were, the governance, the advocacies that over time, institutionally, are beginning to administrate for that cohesion.
So what you're bringing on board essentially is unity.
Yes.
But let's break this down even further, because I imagine the people of the FCT try to look at who fits. There are other candidates as well. What, and I'll rephrase the question, this disunity, which you think is a major issue, what has that cost FCT? How is it a challenge? I mean, is it in terms of infrastructure, in terms of what exactly?
You know, the power of unity is what drives socioeconomic engagements and the outcomes of the deliverables as promised in the place of election campaigns and the performance of the promise in the place of engaging the citizenry. What has happened is this, in the political architecture of the FCT, both at the partisan level and non-partisan level, has created what I call an apathy, a citizenry apathy within the FCTarian communities. So you find that elites and certain non-indigene settlers of entrepreneurial, significant entrepreneurial reference, when it comes to the opportunity to vote, don't bother voting. Now it is left to the indigene, as it were, who takes this on as a very onerous but deliberate matter of tribal integrity. And you find that this happens across all party lines. I've got to put a bag in there, I've got to put a guadara in there, and they keep cracking it until what we're dealing with are the fragments. And this is creating a state of insecurity and restiveness amongst the youth. It is also creating a very bitter disparity, which is engendered the more by political opportunists who want to take over a system for personal gain without establishing the gains for the polity, the FCTarian polity. Infrastructure, we will say the roads, electricity to a certain extent, because it's the capital city, have a certain referenced, I would say, reference position of, in terms of the scale of sectoral development, right, better than other places. But the truth is, it's just at the center. Like you said, we have the 6 area councils, we have the 62 wards, and when you go into all of these areas, you find that there's a significant disparate representation of utilities that have to do with our socioeconomic civil lifestyle.
Right. You know, quite a number of areas to cover. So I essentially would like to touch on those areas. Are you an indigene of the FCT in the term indigene or in the sense of indigene?
In the sense of indigene, yes. I've been in Abuja for 30 years. I came here as a youth corper, and someone was saying to me the other day, you should go to your hometown to run. And I said, this has been my home and my town for over 30 years. Where as a youth corper, I came in, was courted, got married. I've had my 4 children. I've settled my business, my enterprise, and all of the initiative that has brought me into the media and the communication space, the various public domains, working its way, scaling its way through to international representations for my country, for my gender, for different advocates and agendas, have happened because of Abuja.
So you're redefining the definition of
yes, so what I have redefined it as is the FCTarian. But I do not ignore the fact, like some people in a more disparate reference will say, oh, it's a no man's land. I said, no, you don't call that a no man's. This is not a no man's land. The reason we have Abuja and Suleja is the story of Abu and Sule, who were the two, as it were, composite references of 2 brothers who, in the space of this geopolitical territorial space, one settled in Sule, settled in what is now known as Suleja, Abu settled here. Well, that's a story that you tell from the NTDC, and we go forward with. But the reality is that the FCTarian must understand we are a unified demographic, and this barrier, this politically incited barrier has to end. We have to come to a place of equitable understanding, relationship, and cultural existence.
You know, being a woman as well, you have a couple of barriers to break. It's like you're trying to take this on head on. First, being a woman, there's always a conversation about equal representation. We'll get to that. The fact that also you have to, you know, vie against someone who's been in the National Assembly for over 10 years now. And it's said that this is essentially a PDP stronghold. And we've seen that in previous elections. And also the indigenous part. There are questions as to how you will rally both the indigens and non-indigens. But as you've said, the FCTarian, that's a new term you're using. But tell us, because this is what a lot of people will also want to know, what kind of leadership experience do you have in your kitty?
My leadership experience is one of advocating the power of the team spirit. As an entrepreneur, one in media, and one who has grown out of the youth hub of innovation here in the FCT, how did I get into the media enterprise and what I'm doing? Years ago, there was instituted a committee for the corner shop review in Abuja, because before we had the shopping complexes, we had what you called corner shops. And then they needed to set up corner shop review because what was happening was they were populating the metropolis with these small corner shops. And they realized that as far as a capital city, as a project of metropolitan global standard is concerned, this was completely diminishing the scale of the representation of a capital city in terms of its aesthetic. And so they set up a committee. And in that committee, it happened that my husband was drafted in as a youth voice for the FCTarian settler, non-indigene. That happened purely by chance. He was advised by someone who was on the committee that stop coming around here and just being one of the observers. Put up your hand and make a case for the youth and state that something needs to be done to create space. There needs to be inclusiveness for the youth and the entrepreneurial opportunities in the capital city.
And that was your very first.
That was how, in doing that, when they were settling the review committee members, FCT decided that we can't give you money, we'll give you land. That land became a principal investment that built up DOXA, my business, my company with my husband. And that business has raised institutionally a framework right now that has trained skill sets, talents, as well as entrepreneurial representations, not just here, but all over the country.
What would you say is your strongest point, your strongest selling point? And I say this because you're entering a realm that is different from, you know, the corporate, the business realm. Politics is a different ball game entirely. I mean, a day is so long in politics, the kinds of intrigues that come, the horse trading and all of that. So how would you say you're fit for this? What's your biggest strength that you think will work for you?
My biggest strength, first and foremost, is that I'm a visible voice for voices speaking.
And you have following.
And of course I have following.
Well, I didn't expect you to say no anyway.
Exactly. But the kind of following I've got is like popcorn. It pops, it erupts, and that's the second thing. I'm a disruptive. I have the courage of she who dares wins. And she who dares wins takes what is intimidating, what demands that you have to face it, confront it, to beat it down, and to win it. And that in itself is an exceptional dynamic which has grown out of me from a place of fear. Like very many women, there have been challenges that I have had to grow through, I've been scaled through. Again, I make reference to my husband who has trained me in the place of boldness. It's not just in speech, in articulating speech, but in understanding points. And the third thing is that in the space of advocacy and the privilege that I've had to host events and be engaged at the level of the capital-centered presidential top-line premium events, it's given me an ear to hear outlines of not just governmental advocacies, but aspirations of governmental reform that have been put together by research teams that have not yet seen the light of day or been translated into a place of activation. Now, for me, therefore, in coming into the scene, I see myself not just as an agent of change, but the total expression of change.
Okay, let's project into the future. I mean, you have your aspirations, your mission to be in the Senate. Are you able, do you think you're able to withstand, you know, the pressures in the Senate and stand shoulder to shoulder with the men in the red chamber?
I think what is principal first is a demonstration of my resilience in the primaries. What is primary now is emerging from the primaries as the ticket bearer, as the ticket holder, the flag bearer, and to write down an expression here. Win the ticket at the primaries, win the seat at the general elections, terminate a 12-year incumbency, and set a history-making, record-breaking status quo for the ruling party of the APC in the FCT.
How many people are you competing against
right now
in your party?
Right now, I don't have anyone openly who's competing, but I do hear that I have several that have discreetly purchased their forms or have had their forms purchased for them.
I know you recently visited the youth leader of your party, and I know it's in part of the moves to get some sort of support. Are you hoping to be the consensus candidate, or you want this to go to primaries?
Let's see what emerges. I don't have a hope. I have a complete persuasion and conviction that APC wants to win the FCT seat of Senate. They're not just looking for a woman, because yes, it's time for a woman. You're looking for a winner. You're looking for someone who clearly has the qualifications of a rugged, resilient popularity to be tested against any incumbent, or going out there to have a credible direction for what is new, bold, and disruptive in the face of the now. So when it comes to positioning, whether it is going to be by consensus or by delegate election, that is not my position to say. I'm only running as an aspiring candidate. I'm an aspirant. So that decision, I have different postures coming from different viewpoints.
Right.
Oh, let it be consensus, so let it be. But, you know, even all of that, like you said, the horse trading is so significant that it's made me understand that the real politicking or politricking happens at the primaries.
It's interesting you are entering into that field as well. So, I mean, you call it politricking.
I said politicking and politricking.
It's okay. We understand. I mean, our viewers understand that point.
It's all politics. Because you know what? Politics is two things. Excuse my saying, it's transactional before it's transformational. So you've got to be able to get to the market.
So you're ready to get dirty in this one?
My dear, I know how to have a good bath.
After you get dirty?
Well, you want to understand what dirt is. As long as dirt does not compromise you, if dirt is what happens to you when you play the right kind of football, then it's okay. Let's handle this as sport. Let's handle it as the grit that comes from war and all of the bastions that come with the battle. If I'm going to get dirty from battle, I'm okay with that.
Our viewers will think I'm your opponent at this point. But, you know, let's talk about this fact. You're a woman vying for this position. Yes. And it's always been said that women make up a huge block of the voting population. It is expected to be a no-brainer. If a woman, steps into the race, it's expected that women will support, and you naturally win that election. But for you, how much of support are you banking on from your women folk?
I'll tell you what I am. I'm a prototype that mobilizes women to do what women do, not just for women, but for a space and a moment in time. And what I found is, you see, when you push gender without agenda, you will begin to, it's not just about twinning, you begin to achieve what is a very significant integration of unity, faith, peace, and progress. And this is the dynamic I am finding with what I'm doing. Across party lines, partisanship, people who have never owned a PVC are going to get their PVCs. I have an aged mama, that's what I'll call her, who called me and said, my daughter, what do you think you are doing? And I had a conversation with her. And she said, in my life, and I'm 70-something years old, I have never voted. And I have always promised myself I will never own a PVC because this country's politics is hopeless. But because of you, my daughter, can someone show me the way to get my PVC? I told her when she's going, I want to go with her because she's just one of many stories. Whether it's youth, I've talked with youth, and having them, their mindsets reset, rescaled, making them understand it's not about a popular following for me as your Auntie D. It's for you. Your vote is your voice. What are you saying? Oh, it's not about Adedayo Benjamin's Lani getting into the Senate. See you getting there. Because when I get there, you should be telling me what I am doing to serve you. For me, I've given the distinguished reference to as many people who get me into the seat why I remain your faithful servant.
Let's wind down in about a minute or less. And let me see how to couch all of this together into one question. There's a lot of conversation around zoning, essentially north and south. And I know women have also clamored, even men as well, for equal representation. So I wonder, within your party, it would look like this zoning thing is not really, going through. It's falling through as it stands right now. And I wonder, what do you think when you see the conversation about zoning and it looks like there's no conversation about equal representation, or at least some more representation for women, even within your party?
Well, I will simply say this again. I'm an aspiring candidate. So certain things remain within the space of an aspirant to speak about, while we leave the leadership to handle what in leading they need to articulate.
So you're not
more
ready
specifically.
to rock the boat?
Well, I'm not saying I'm not. I already am a rock star in this boat. And when I say that, I mean it in the context that as a woman who was able to purchase her form, expression of interest form, with the free form by way of the nomination form being handed to us by the party, it still gave me a space to define myself, put myself in the room. Why? Because for every other woman who has ever run, who has never run, and who will ever run, Adedayo Benjamin's Lani is a full force representation that is taking on this next season, not just of the campaign, but the delivery of the senatorial distinction of an FCT senator as a woman.
Let's anchor this boat at this point, but we'd like to thank you so much for joining us on the program. We've been speaking with Mrs. Adedayo Benjamin's Lani, who's vying for the only FCT senatorial seat. We wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Well, we'll go on a break now, and when we return, this conversation has been a long time coming. We'll be speaking with a man whose eye is set on being the 16th leader of Nigeria. Pastor Tunde Bakare is our next guest on the program tonight. You don't want to miss this. Stay with us. You're welcome back. Well, our next guest tonight is a lawyer turned preacher turned politician. Still, all of that in the same mix. He was called to bar in 1981, but 7 years later, he became a pastor. He's seen as someone who speaks truth to power, especially from the pulpit with his characteristic fiery sermons. He ventured into politics and became now President Buhari's running mate in the 2011 presidential elections on the platform of the Congress for Progressive Change. He was a convener of the Save Nigeria Group, a coalition of pro-democracy groups, and today is a serving overseer of the Senatorial Global Community Church Nigeria, and also presidential aspirant in the APC. Pastor Tunde Bakare joins us virtually tonight on Politics Today. Well, good evening, Pastor Bakare, and thank you for joining us on the program. Lots of Nigerians witnessed your official declaration earlier today, and you spoke about the 4 pillars which you wish to build upon to transform the nation. But we'll get to that in a moment, because before that, there are lots of surprises from, your emergence. So let's maybe try to peel the layers. And first shock for a lot of people is the fact that you're now in the APC. I mean, when did you join the APC?
Very interesting question, Cardi. Good evening to you and to all viewers. If I'm asked why did I join APC, I will have to go back to how APC was formed. By the grace of God, after the CPC party that I was part of, and we took part in the election of 2011, thereafter we thought the best way to take power in Nigeria legitimately is to form a merger, to have a merger with other parties. And we began this process about 2012, after we had reconfigured the CPC. And by the grace of God, it was my privilege to move the motion for the merger on February 6, 2013, at the Eagle Square here in the Federal Capital Territory. So if anyone is asking why CPC, why APC, I was part of those who brought APC, and we must nurture it and cause it to grow and become really a party to lead.
Well, the question specifically is, when did you join the APC? Because, yes, we understand you moved the motion for the merger and all of that, but I recall an interview you granted in 2020. You said you didn't join the APC at that time because you were from the legacy party that produced the current president. And you even went on to say that you've not openly joined a political party anywhere, and that you've not talked about the political party you're going to use. So that's 2020. When did you become a member of the APC, a card-carrying member?
You have just said the truth. I said those words, and I don't take back my words. And you recall that from Mr. President himself, as well as all members of the party, we all, the old registry was done away with, and a new registry was open that people were free to join, and we are all newcomers in the party. But to answer you directly, I joined the party on the 21st of February, 2021.
What ward, where exactly did you register?
Ikeja.
Right. So now that that has been gotten out of the way, because a lot of people have been wondering, how did this happen? Well, you've provided some insight. But let's talk about, the next phase, which is, the purchase of the nomination forms, the expression of interest forms. You're someone who has spoken about, the high cost of governance, how we need to have a lean and mean kind of governance structure. And, purchasing a form for 100 million naira. I wonder for you, don't you think that negates your view of having, low cost of governance, not having, a big or too big governance structure?
Well, that has literally nothing to do with governance structure. It has to do with process. By the grace of God, when we get to the place where we can make a difference, you can still be rest assured that the government will be lean and mean, and it's going to be nimble, and we're going to ensure that it had maximum impact. But talking of the cost, there's a price to pay for everything. I was not part of the decision-making process, but if I'm going to apply for anything and there's rest, this is the way to go about it, the price had to be paid. It's like going to a school or going to a university. You pay fees. Now, do I consider that fee or that cost very cheap? Not at all, not in the least. Just as everything in life that is highly valued comes with a price. That was the price the party fixed, and those who want to join will have to go and pay the same price. And by the grace of God, we paid without having to borrow or to beg. And God Almighty, who had provided, is still providing and will continue to provide. And it's not money thrown away. It's part of the investment in a party that needs resources to actually be a formidable party. Yes, very high price.
Right.
That time will come. I remember sharing with some people that the last time in 2014, 2015, when the president contested the first time before he won, it was about 30 million. At this time around, PDP fixed 40 million. I was expecting that would not be more than 50 million, but when it doubled the price, whatever is worth it, because this is time to step in and begin to make a difference, we had to comply by paying that price. Not to pay the price.
Right. Pardon me.
Not to pay. Yes.
Yes, because there are a lot of people who are thinking that this was, another opportunity for you to make a point. You're known as someone who has spoken truth to power, saying, well, this is too much. In the context of the Nigeria we're in today, unemployment figures, the poverty figures, the inflation rates, the cost of living. So amidst all of the lack, it will seem as though you're just pushing it in people's face that, yes, we can afford, these funds. So a lot of people thought you were going to make a point and say, well, this is too far. Do you think you disappointed those people?
Well, I'm not disappointing them because they didn't even know I made such a point. I did. Ever before either transferring funds to purchase the phone, I made moves behind the scenes, spoke to those in authority that not only myself, even some of the governors spoke highly and said this is too high and it will have a backlash from society. We did, but once they made the decision, this is the way to go. Not to pay is to also give room to those who say, well, it's all braggadocio. There was a former senator of Kaduna State, who said Bakare has gone quiet since 100 million is mentioned because he could not afford it. I don't trade insults with people. I just did what I needed to do, spoke against it, but had to comply until you can make a difference. Look at the price Christ paid. He left the whole of heaven and the glory of heaven to come to the earth, to pay a huge price in order to save mankind, to birth a new nation, to serve in a way that will raise standards and at the same time make life more comfortable for others. You have to go through pain.
So are you saying
pain?
Are you saying when you compare that to the price Christ paid, are you saying that you paid the 100 million from your own pocket, same as Christ gave his life, his own life?
Money is the easiest thing to trace. Yes, by the grace of God, we paid. Don't forget, there's so many people who are even willing to pay on our behalf, and so many people who give towards it and are given towards it, but whatever was transferred to the party account came from our account.
Right. Well, just quickly, before we get into your plans, you were conspicuously missing from that Southwest presidential aspirants meeting in Lagos over the weekend. Why? Were you invited or weren't you?
I was invited, I think, a day or two before the event, but I gave a tangible excuse why I could not be there. Previously, I'd been scheduled to meet with the President and Commander-in-Chief on that exact day, 6th of May at 9 p.m. The meeting in Lagos was 6 p.m. It was Otumba Adebayo who contacted me on behalf of the group that this meeting had been fixed and you are cordially invited. And I sent a message to him, which he delivered there, that it is not possible for me to be in two places. And I spoke with those who convened the meeting, and they told me my inability to be there, the excuse was tendered and was acceptable to them. Right. So let's now get into is it ambition or your mission now? You keep using that term that you are the 16th, that President Buhari is 15th, but you are 15th. And you've said that several times. And I'd like you to shed more light on that. Is that a prophecy? Is that a vision? Is it something that is fail-proof? Well, nothing in life except God Almighty and His Word is fail-proof. Only God can make things happen, can speak with final authority, and nothing changes that. The 16th has been a childhood dream that I saw. And I will tell you quickly, because I saw Reuben Abati trying to be sarcastic about that. I wrote this book, I wrote this vision that I saw, this dream that I had, April 10, 1967, in a book that I published since 2018, and everyone who cared to know had heard about this. In my father's house are 16 steps in a historic building that he built in 1922. And one night in a dream, I climbed these 16 steps, and instead of a window before me, it turned to a door. I walked through this door and I saw a massive rock. On the rock were two people, two of the greatest and some of the greatest people in Nigeria, General Gawan, Yakubu Gawan, and Chief Obafemi Awolowo, one on the right, one on the left. And I found myself sitting in the middle still between them and were looking at the trajectory of Nigeria, its future greatness and everything. At the age of almost 13, I was 12 plus, I didn't fully understand the dream until my mother explained certain things to me. And as I proceeded and as I continued with God, I discovered that Genesis 16, Genesis the 16th chapter, is a book about reconciliation of conflicts within family and nations and regions. Right. It has 16 verses. And also the 16th book of the Bible is a book of Nehemiah. When I say the 16th text made me conclude that by the time we'll have the 16th head of state or president, as it's called now, I have a destined role to play. My destiny is intertwined with that of Nigeria. That was where I came from, and I've been using the 16 consistently. And one of the reasons I agreed to run with Mr. President when he was a candidate in 2011 is because I knew it's number 15. If you start counting from Tafawa Balewa up to today, he's the 15th president, and by God's grace, I will play a significant role in the 16th presidency. So in other words, Pastor Bakare, if you say you play a significant role, it doesn't necessarily have to be the president. It could be vice president or another prominent role. Is that what you mean? Is it president or nothing for you? You can't say, if you're a nation builder, you can't say, oh, presidency or nothing. This is not an ambition. If it's an ambition, then you can do everything to make it happen. If it is vision, it's God that makes it happen. And to answer you directly, by the grace of God, I intend to be the 16th president of Nigeria. All right. So, I mean, you forgive a lot of people if they don't exactly maybe buy that vision. I mean, it's democracy. People have choices to make. And I'd like you to address this. Yes, you have that vision. You've gone even divine in trying to explain that. But aside that, there will always be the question of what kind of leadership, abilities do you bring on board? And if you could deal with that in about a minute, what stands you out amongst 200 million Nigerians to be the one who will take Nigeria to that promised land, as it were? What stands you out? So many things. By the grace of God, we can look at our trajectory, what we have done, hitherto, what we have gone through, and where we are. And anyone asking the question, why do I think I have what it takes? to be a leader or to the leadership quality I have should begin to think of what President Muhammadu Buhari of the same 200 million people chose me to be his running mate. I remember him telling me three things. He said, we have checked you out, you have integrity, you have character, you have competence, and I know that if you team up with me, we will make Nigeria a better place to live in. I do not want to sing my own praises, but you can just look around you and see what God has enabled me to do. When this nation was in the throes of crisis in 2010, I convened the Save Nigeria group, led it with integrity, led it with competence, and by the grace of God, we were able to secure what is now called doctrine of necessity. Led by the grace of God impeccably within the church organization for 33 years, and you could criticize what I've said, what I've taught. God has not allowed any scandal to break around me for any cause of financial impropriety and other things. By the grace of God, the leadership skill we acquired from the likes of Chief Ganifani, who mentored us, from the likes of Rotimi Williams, and as a young student, alongside with my friend Benga Daniel, who have been mentored by Chief Obafemi Awolowo, leadership or character is what comes into crystal clear when you are under pressure. When others ran back from the battle, we stood strong, we pushed the nation forward, right. And we have shown it in our business life, in our ministry life, in every way by raising other leaders. A few days ago, I took my bow. The ministry is still going on because success without succession is failure. We have raised leaders across the nation and we continue to do it.
So does that mean that you're stepping aside from ministry to follow through with this ambition or the mission, which you have called it?
Whatever you call it, Calvin, the truth is I cannot be president of Nigeria and be preaching every Sunday. No. Others will have to continue. I've pastored that church for 3 years. I took a vow. But I want you to know that I'm not a professional politician, that if politics is not going to work, I have no other things to do. There will be so many other things to do, but I had to take a vow to let others continue. If you read your Bible well, and I know Kayode, you may be a Christian, every time David was in the palace of Saul, he had opportunity to go back to feed the flock. I will still remain a Christian. I will still worship in church, and I will still be my neighbor's keeper, my brother's keeper. Right. And so I'm not bringing religion into this matter, and as a matter of fact, I'm not religious at all. As far as I'm concerned, my faith is relationship with God, because the word religion is from religio, which means return to bondage.
Well,
there's no bondage.
Pastor Bakare, there's so many issues to raise. You forgive me for trying to rush this. I mean, this is a conversation the Nigerians have looked forward to. And you talked about scandals earlier on, saying that, well, you've been largely exempted from scandals. And late last year, that story made the rounds about your relationship with a certain bank and how things may have even gone awry. I wonder, do you suspect that was targeted to taint your image? And what's your position on that?
Well, the truth of the matter is those who propagated that story also pulled the story down. The bank came to speak that, listen, Kayode, is it a crime to take a loan? 2 months before they broke this news, in front page of this day, I analyzed or detailedly gave evidence of how we financed the project that is standing there. Over 12 billion worth of project that is standing there called the Citadel. We envisioned it. It was conceived by us and it was backed by us. We took loans from 5 banks. In addition to our resources and what the people of God gathered together, we were able to build. We took loans from 5 banks. As of today, 3 banks have been paid off. The 4th bank we have resumed paying. The 5th we have restructured, and the loan was secure. The bank that testified. Do I need to sweat over that? By the grace of God, there will be no amount, no penny outstanding before we do the final dedication of that building. We didn't hide anything. So those who are carrying that all around are saying that, well, we are in scandal. If the bank said so, let the bank come claim. The bank stated we're in good relationship with them, the loan was properly secured, and we are meeting our obligations.
Right. Let's do a mock test of sorts, Pastor Bakare, as we wind down. Lots of questions to raise. I'm spoiled for choice, but I'm going to be presenting some scenarios which Nigeria is currently facing. I'd like you to speak to them, the solutions you have in mind. And I'll begin with the agitations that we have across regions. I know during your declaration today, you talked about the Presidential Commission for National Reconciliation, Reintegration and Rebirth. And you said that after 2 years, they will reconcile the various groups. And I wonder, are you foreclosing, for example, a referendum, which some have called for, or some other, agitation for a self-governing state? Are you foreclosing on all of that?
There's no foreclosure on any individual group's rights. If you recall, you may not know this, as far back as some 2-3 years ago, I was in Glasgow attending a conference on referendum to see how this is done. Not only that, I took part in the 2014 National Conference to see how Nigerians can come together. We are better together, the largest economy in Africa. Our population alone is a blessing, not a minus for us. I'm for a nation that is built on equity, fairness, justice, and fair play. So I cannot, those who are agitating and wanting to go is because they feel marginalized. And we say we are going to set up a Nigerian charter on national reconciliation, I beg your pardon, a commission, national reconciliation, reintegration, and the rebirth of our nation, where men who are bridge builders will preside, and we sit on the table of brotherhood, discuss our differences, and find a way forward.
Okay, we have a minute. Pardon me, we have a minute to close. I do hope we'll continue this conversation, but I'd like you to end on this note. The 4 pillars, the 4 Ps, that's peace, progress, prosperity, and possibilities. Can you speak to them in a minute?
Without peace, there cannot be increase. Learning from even God's words as to the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end. If we don't have peace, if there's bomb scare here, train banditry there, we cannot forge ahead. We must do everything to ensure there's peace and order in our country. And it starts from the foundation of rule of law. When peace comes, you then can sleep well, you can wake up well, you can go do your work. Definitely, when we have peace, we definitely have progress. But we are not just using this as phrases and terminology, peace, progress, prosperity, and possibilities. If you listen to me for almost an hour today, I specified what each one will carry. I spoke about National Geo-Economic Development Plan, our new GDP, that is just more than the regular gross domestic product. I envision that our geopolitical zones will become like 6 different, imagine Dubai City, 6 different economic zone that is thriving on the resources within that zone, so that industries and manufacturing outfits can be built around there, even up to our educational system that we are going to learn. We are going to have syllabuses and things in our universities built in such places that the education there will be to train our people to ensure that that particular zone is thriving. We are dependent on the center for too long a time.
Well, clearly,
we need to go back into what will make this nation great again.
Well, Pastor Tunde Bakare, clearly this conversation is far from over, and I do wish that we can pick this up some other time. Always quite engaging to speak with you on issues of national development, but we'd like to thank you at least for the little time we've spent with you on the program this evening. We've been speaking with Pastor Tunde Bakare, who has his eyes set on being the 16th leader of Nigeria. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, Cardi. The possibilities are enormous, and we will do our best to ensure that Nigeria is great again.
Well, there you have it from the man himself. At this point, but clearly the journey continues. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest breaking stories in the political space. So please have a wonderful night and get ready for the next twist. I'm Kayode Okikili. Good night.